other names, and when you hear your name, raise your hand and let me see you coming down to the front. Andy Hoskerson. Where's Andy?
Right here.
Okay, come on down to the front. Cody Claxton. Is Cody here? Come on down to the front. George Krevelek. Krevelek is here. Veronica Slutsky. Come on down to the front of the room. Mia Farinelli. Okay. And Ed Hubner. Where is Ed Hubner? Okay, come on down to the front of the room. We have lots of, in the first two rows on both sides of the podium. And Leslie Van Woods. I know that Van Woods is here. All right, welcome to Gary Jeter.
Madam Speaker and honorable members of the board, my name is Gary Jeter, 406 Upland Place, Vienna. I come to you today to ask that the board issue a resolution that Fairfax County will abide by the United States Constitution, and especially the Second Amendment, and like provisions within the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Political turnover in the General Assembly has generated a torrent of proposed legislation offensive to the Bill of Rights. Fairfax County is preparing to submit a legislative program to the General Assembly, which will rubber stamp Senator Saslow's pre-filed Senate Bill 16. Senate Bill 16 purports to ban so-called assault firearms. The legislative program this board specifically asks for includes a ban of assault firearms. Senate Bill 16 creates a new Virginia Code section which will violate the fundamental right of citizens to possess common small arms. The fundamental right is recognized and guaranteed by the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the Commonwealth. On July 1, and this is the most tragic part of it, a new Virginia Code section will be created which will violate the fundamental right of these citizens and will cause these citizens, tens of thousands of them in Fairfax County alone, to become felons under the very legislation sought by this board. Does the board really have any idea of the scope and effect of the legislation that it has requested? Last week, the board published a draft legislative program proposing a ban on assault weapons, but the board provides no definition of what is an assault weapon. Senate Bill 16 expands the term assault weapon far beyond any previous definition of an assault weapon. The definition of assault weapon under Senate Bill 16 is so broad that it will render it a felony to possess virtually any semi-automatic handgun or rifle. This includes common firearms that bear no resemblance whatsoever to the type of weapons average citizens might imagine to be an assault weapon. The board ostensibly justifies its position on assault weapons in its legislative program by remarking that more Virginians die from gun violence than automobile accidents. 2/3 of firearm deaths in Virginia, tragically, are suicides. In 2017, throughout the entirety of Virginia, only seven deaths were the result of any sort of rifle, assault type or otherwise. It strains credulity to suggest that there's any logical nexus between suicide and so-called assault weapons. Senate Bill 16 has motivated 30 counties and towns in Virginia to pass legislation or resolutions declaring them sanctuary counties. An equal number have dates pending. I respectfully request that the Board of Supervisors promptly set a specific agenda item to hear public comment on the issue of Second Amendment rights in Fairfax County. Thank you for your time.
Andy Hoskinson, and Andy will be followed by Cody Claxton and George Krevelek. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, distinguished members. My name is Andy Hoskinson, and I am a long-time resident of Fairfax County, all the way back to the 70s. I'm a 1981 graduate of Bolton High School, Go Cougars. I favor making Fairfax County a Second Amendment sanctuary county and oppose the county's current gun control legislative agenda. I'm concerned that the current gun control agenda of the county misleads your constituents about the scope of the problem and the legality and effectiveness of the proposed solutions. So FBI crime statistics, which I did not see referenced in your document, show a nationwide 6.5% decline in gun murders between 2017 and 2018, with Virginia seeing an 11% decline. This flies in the face of the so-called gun violence crisis narrative in the current agenda. Now let's look at some of your so-called common sense policy proposals. The first one is universal background checks. The scientific literature is clear on this. UBCs do not work. Johns Hopkins University and UC Davis studied 3 states and 25 years of data and found that UBCs had no effect on the rate of gun deaths. Now, with respect to the constitutionality of your proposals, my concern is that you are proposing high-capacity magazine bans that have already been found by existing case law to be unconstitutional, specifically Duncan v. Becerra and NYSRPA v. Cuomo. Now, moving on to red flag laws. Duke University studied 14 years of data from the state of Connecticut, and the findings were underwhelming, to say the least, in terms of the efficacy of red flag laws. With regards to preventing person-on-person gun violence, there was insufficient data. Despite 14 years of data, or 14 years of study and 762 seizures, there was insufficient data to determine any population-level benefit for person-on-person violence, gun violence. Now, with respect to preventing suicides, the study estimated that at most 2 to 4% of suicides were prevented in Connecticut during the 14-year study period. And even that is based on fuzzy regression analysis instead of hard data. Another disturbing finding is that many of the seizure population ended up killing themselves anyway by other means, even after their guns were taken away, at a rate 40 times higher than the normal population. Finally, with respect to the so-called assault weapons ban, again, referring to FBI crime statistics, only 2% of gun homicides within Virginia in 2018 used assault weapons as defined by the proposed legislation. Almost twice as many people were murdered in Virginia using bare hands, fists, and feet. Thank you for your time.
Yes, good evening. My name is Cody Claxton of Annandale, Virginia. I've been in Fairfax County for over 30 years. I ask you to support a resolution in Fairfax County that declares it will not use its county resources to enforce new gun bans, new gun laws. These measures attempt to blame weapons or self-defense training for the behavior of a tiny percentage of violent people. We have a human right to self-defense with a bearable firearm of our choice and our responsibility to the state militia. Proposed gun laws are illegal to enforce because of the Second Amendment and Article 1, Section 13 of the Commonwealth's Constitution. The Commonwealth goes one step further by defining the body of the people as the militia. In layman's terms, that means every Virginian. Federal law makes it illegal to deprive a citizen of these rights. These gun laws will not improve public safety. Criminals will ignore any new gun laws and continue to obtain illegal firearms. Disarming the innocent will not deter the guilty. An armed citizen is the only one at the right time and place to defend themselves or their loved ones. And AR types of weapons with large capacity magazines are the best choice for defense because they are more able to avoid non-threats, take out a hostage taker, or outlast an active shooter. They are now the top choice for all law enforcement for these very reasons. So why then should citizens be denied the same self-defense right that police officers have? We don't ban alcohol because some people are violent while they get drunk. It is irrational to blame firearms or punish lawful citizens for the actions of criminals. The legislative focus should be on training, safe storage, treating depression, and education. If a person uses a firearm in self-defense, maybe illegal under these proposals, they too would be criminalized and hauled off to prison. Any law that punishes the innocent for protecting themselves from the guilty is immoral and inhumane. Please do not let yourselves be used to enact tyranny against lawful gun owners, but instead stand up for liberty and against punishing the innocent. Thomas Jefferson wrote, "I know no safe depository of the ultimate powers of the society, but the people themselves. And if we think them not enlightened enough to exercise their control with a wholesome discretion, the remedy is not to take it from them, but to inform their discretion by education. This is the true corrective of abuses of constitutional power." Thank you for your time.